You are a creator. You create your career, your business. You create a family. You create your future. On the Results Driven Life by Design broadcast, get ready to hear from people from all walks of life and how they overcame the odds to create a life led by purpose and vision. Here's your host, Kia Arian.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to today's broadcast. I always begin by reminding you that your skills, your talents, and your experiences have been given to you for a reason. No one else has that unique combination, and no one else has your voice. You have a message that the world needs to hear. And so as you listen to today's show, I invite you to a greater vision for your life that resonates beyond what you do, but why you do it. So on today's show, I have something a little different. I have invited fitness expert, health coach, and mentor to men 40 years old and up, Aaron Braithwaite. Aaron is the founder of the Warrior Shed movement, which he will tell you about himself. Now, I want to tell you how I discovered Aaron. He came up on my social media. So the Instagram gods, in all their wisdom, thought that I'd be interested in his content, although he speaks mostly to men. But I think it's because I follow a lot of health and personal development and business development accounts. So he naturally showed up. And I'm glad he did, because what caught my attention was how authentic he was. So obviously I get a lot of creators who talk about these topics and they're all good. But what was unique about Aaron was that I felt that his message just came from within. He showed up different. And it wasn't like he was trying to perform or try to be somebody he wasn't. He was candid, unapologetic, but there was also a deep compassion to his voice. So it was very intriguing, and I felt that his message to men was something that really needed to be heard. So as some of my regular listeners know, I've talked about the female experience and the feminine embodiment and the different dynamics that women contend with, particularly women who are in the business context, who are in entrepreneurship and leadership. But I really love Aaron's message to men. And so I wanted to invite him, and he graciously accepted, and give him a different platform to share his insights from a man's perspective to men, but also to my female listeners, because this is an important message. So Aaron, welcome. So glad to have you on the show.
Thank you very much for having me. It's good to be here.
Thank you. All right. So let's just start with you sharing your journey, how you got to where you are now.
Yeah, it's been a bit of an involved journey, you might say. The fundamentals of fitness hasn't changed. However, we've seen a shift in men's behavior over the 30 years. But I'm going to kind of frame that if you have a look 100 years ago and how that all changed. Start with a little bit of a story. So 100 years ago, you had the bravest that were sent off to war. And you had all these young kids as well that were fabricating their age to go to war. Now, when you're in war, what they were preaching as far as the sergeants, the drill sergeants, and when you go through your training, the one thing they drummed into them was that if you show emotion, not only will you die, but also your mate next to you will die. So from that point onwards, men were conditioned to not show emotion. So 100 years ago, those that survived the war came back were, and look, you can look at the PTSD side of it, but they were, ingrained or they were trained to not show emotion. Hence, when they came back from war, that just became a generational thing. Then we fast forward into, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, femininity kind of came in, feminism, the rise of feminism, where we don't need men. Men were already suffering, not being able to express emotion, not being given a safe space to express emotion. Femininity came in, and feminism, I'd say, came in. What happened then was more emasculation of men. So when you're looking at men that don't know how to express themselves, all of a sudden society is saying, shut up. And I do swear a little bit, so I apologize first up if it does come out. So when you've got society saying, we don't want to hear your bitch, we don't want to hear your any of your emotions, whether it be sadness, happiness, anger, men had no safe space to express that. So, and if you did, you were either toxic masculinity, you were either, a bigot, or you're misogynist, or a phobia. All of these terms came in the last 30 years, and it's only sped up in the last 10 to 20 years. Now, there's a really good quote that Tony Robbins has put out, and it's weak men create hard times create strong men create good times create weak men. We're in that cycle again. And we're in that cycle of now we're starting to see those strong men come through and go, hey, enough of the hard times, enough of the bullshit, that we need strong men to rise. Majority of my clients are females, interestingly enough. So there's probably a nice segue into where the men's side of it came in. So there's a lot of women, and I get a lot of support on my social media in regards to this, that women right now need men to stand up. They need men to speak up. They need men to provide. Now that you can look at that in a lot of different contexts, but the fundamental value of men comes down to, yes, we are leaders and we're builders and we're protectors. And providers in a way of, it's not providing just for money, it's providing safety more than anything. So we're now getting into that side where I am just encouraging men and giving them a safe space to go, hey, express yourself. What's going on? Let's go. But the difference between me is I don't give them the sympathy, I give them the empathy. It's like, great, I hear you, I understand you. Now what do we do moving forward, and hold them ultimately accountable for what they say they're going to do. And that's a problem. A lot of men don't like being told what to do. So therefore, it's like, okay, well, where do I need to come from? Well, I need to come from a space of, look at all these females over here that are wanting you to stand up and step up, your family, your wives, your circle. I call it kingdom. And kingdom is your close circle, your close knit of people around you. They are wanting you to stand up and be your authentic man. I hope in a nutshell that kind of explains a little bit about where it all came. But my journey started about nearly 10 years ago now, when my father died. And when he died, it was, for me, I looked at him and I'm going, okay, what legacy are you leaving behind? And that was an interesting conversation to have with a dying father. But then I took myself and go, okay, well, what's my legacy? Because I'm a 4-year-old son as well. So I needed to look at going, all right, what legacy am I leaving behind? Who can I help lift and bring up? But also at the same time, who can I share my story with?
That's so interesting. So that was going to be my question, is that what triggered that understanding that men need help in this space? Was it a personal journey that you yourself experienced, or something that you saw in your clients, or some combination?
Yeah, a combination of everything. Definitely my own journey. I looked at where I was heading. My life was a roller coaster. I call it the pit, and the pit is the darkness, and the darkness is where you're at bottom, whether it be financially, spiritually. Experiencing a divorce, having to say goodbye to a 4-year-old son who's sitting on your lap and just wants his dad around. Like at that moment, that's kind of like an emotional rock bottom. But also I've experienced the financial hardship of rock bottom, where you just don't know where your next dollar's coming from, where, how you're going to pay for rent, sleeping on the floor, all of that kind of stuff. Just living week by week. And that's a lot of what's going on in the world right now. There's a lot of people that are struggling. And I look at it and go, okay, we can look at the external, we can look at the blame factor, we can look at all the reasons why we're in the position that we're in. However, you need to then point your finger back at yourself and go, well, you're the one that made the decisions to get to where you are. So if you point the finger back at you and you look at yourself in the mirror and go, okay, well, what do I need to do in order to get out of this? And it's a combination of a couple of things. And when I look at men, I look at 4 protocols. And the 4 protocols is, the first one's the body. The second one is a spiritual connection. The third one, I'll look at relationships. And the fourth one is business, and that's the making money. Now, for men, we're not necessarily in touch with our emotions. However, there's been a lot of rise of feminism. There's been a lot of rise with the femininity, the feminine, the masculine. It's like, get in touch with your feminine. And that's where we've found a lot of weakness in men, because we can't be feminine. That's not us to our core. We need to have the masculine traits. And those masculine traits are that you can be strong, you can be jacked, and you can be weaponized body. But there's a lot of men that have used that from an egotistical perspective. And that's come across as too extreme. And then that goes into the spirituality and the spiritual connection that you have with yourself. And that's a combination of a couple of things. You've been guided by source, God, the universe, call it whatever you want. We all have that. And the inner voice is only from love. And because over 100 years we've been shunned, we've been told not to express ourselves. As a kid, I got told, be seen and not heard, men don't cry, all of that kind of stuff. But you need to be able to express your emotion in some form. And a lot of men going to the gym, doing bodybuilding, using my body as an armor to, not only distractions, but also my own internal pain. So the The spiritual connection for me is a twofold. Not only are you listening to yourself, you're listening to guidance, but it's also that emotional maturity that will come in as well. And the emotion about communication. It's all about being present in the moment, getting off your devices and actually listening to your partner. Open communication, talking about things that are really uncomfortable, because who likes to talk about uncomfortable things? No one. And when you take the anger out of it because you're so connected with yourself and you come from a place of love, then there's always going to be harmony of it, making money, building businesses and leading. So that's kind of like in a preference. The protocols I have, which tie in really nicely, I just want men to stop being one-dimensional, stop focusing on one thing at any one time, and let's be multidimensional. You can work on all areas of your life all at the same time, and that's the warriorship movement.
I love that.
All of my men.
I love how you've put them in these four protocols, like you said, because you're right, we're not one dimensional. And what I've observed is that men, and you can tell me, I don't know, I mean, I'm not a man, they tend to withdraw from the responsibility, the accountability, and not all of them, but the first, like women, their first response to maybe like a high pressure situation or stress situation is to connect. Like they need like the girls, right? Their connections, they need that. Men, they want to go in their cave. And so I think that's unique for men in that it's easy to just stay in this place of being like small, and like you said, you use your body as an armor to just withdraw into this is your armor that you're not going to come out of. But
Yeah.
creating these spaces that they can step into, is that accurate? Like now you've given them like do they not realize that there are all these different dimensions that they need to address?
Look, a lot of men don't, because if you have a look at the circle they're in, a lot of men think exactly the same. So, and it's uncomfortable for men to step out of that because they lose their circle. But the problem is, and they need to really see it from the outside. So until you start to realize, oh shit, this journey I'm going on is a dead end. What am I building here? What am I leaving? And in order for them to step into the version of themselves that they were born to be, there's got to be an element of loneliness. They don't understand that there is an element of loneliness already, because like you said, there's, female empowerment groups and movements and programs that are out there overwhelmingly. And that's where a lot of your females have had to step into the masculine role because the men haven't stepped up. And you wonder why feminism took off, because there were these weak men that were there, but it's just taken off onto a whole new, it's on its own, where the whole misogynist movement came in, and you're a bigot or you're a phobia of some sort if you're a man to speak up. What men need to understand is that it's the sticks and stones will break my bones and words will never hurt me. Yeah, they need to realize that that's just words. That's their emotion. You do not need to accept it. And if you're emotionally and spiritually connected to you, you know what your message is. You already know who you are at the core, and you know you're only coming from a place of love. Ignore that. Stay on path, stay on to what you need to do. Now, there's also another side of that as well, that when you're in that building phase and when you're in that phase of becoming the version of yourself that you need to be, there's going to be resistance. The resistance is either from the naysayer, will there be throwing out the tall poppy syndrome. But the most important, I guess the most important thing men need to realize is that when you start stepping into a new version of yourself, your friends, your families, and your kids are used to you being a certain way. So when you're stepping into this new version of them, they're looking at you going, what the hell's going on here? Like, who the fuck are you? You're changed. And it's like, great, well, that's what you're meant to do. Problem being, though, is that this is where the whole selfishness needs to be removed. Don't be selfish in the fact of that, yes, this is a selfish movement that you're doing within, but you need to bring your family, you need to bring your friends with you. And it's a really interesting one. That's where the whole warriorship coaching, the warriorship movement comes in. It's like, hey, there's a circle of men there that are all on the same journey, but we're leaving behind if I dead weight, yes, and make those hard decisions. But at the same time, you need your wife, you need your kids there as your support network to help you keep going, because ultimately, at the end of the day, is that you need to be doing it for them. And what's the purpose? Don't do it for you, because if you're just doing it for you, you're going to be alone. So make sure, what's the purpose? And for me, it's leaving something behind for my son. But he's seen my journey as well. He's seen me hit rock bottom. He's seen me be in tears and literally being like, I don't know what to do, tomorrow. and being in a place where I don't know how to get out of where I'm getting out of. But there's always a phrase, there's always a word that keeps coming back to me every time I'm in that pit and that darkness. It's that, when you hold on to something like that, you just need to trust the purpose. It's going to be rocky. It's going to be really uncomfortable. It's going to be a massive storm, but you just need to trust the purpose, and you need to, really go internal and trust the guidance that you've been given. And there's always sunshine at the end of a storm.
That's so important. I mean, the journey to growth, like you said, to step into a better version, to leave a legacy for your children, for the people that are looking to you, it's not easy. And if you do it alone, when it gets to the hard parts where you think you're going crazy and that you're going to lose everything and that somehow, all those mind baggage junk that starts to come up. And if you don't have people around you, what happens is, at least for men, they resort to addictions, they resort to numbing, they resort to unhealthy coping, which then you have, pornography, alcohol, drugs, all of that, which is sad and unfortunate and not what men were called to be, right?
No, I agree. Yeah, you're so true. There's so many distractions out there now for everyone to not really do the strong inner work. And at the core, human beings don't like pain, whether it be physical pain, whether it be emotional pain. And there's a hell of a lot of emotional pain when you're going through, redefining who you are and how the world sees you. Go to a distraction or abuse in one form or another. Yeah, whether it be porn, whether it be alcohol, drugs, whatever it is, to distract themselves from doing the really inner work. And I've seen it that when the addiction comes in, they are so close. So close. They're just at the tipping point for them to all of a sudden realize this is who I'm meant to be, and finding purpose in that. And part of my program is no alcohol. Part of my program is you move every single day, because we know when you move your body, you're feeling good. So I want you to stay there. I want you to feel good. And when you feel good, you want to do more things. And a really important, point that I made at the start, that men are physical beings, physically strong within himself. And he looks at himself in the mirror and he's like, damn, you're looking good. Not only do men want to be seen, or they want to be seen from their partners as sexually desiring. Let's be real. There's a lot of men that are walking around and have lost that connection, that lust and that love between their partners. So what if a man started looking after himself, started going to the gym, started eating healthier, started putting really good thoughts into his mind? How sexually appealing would he then be to his partner? Great, awesome. How would that make you feel as a man if you're made to feel sexually desired by your partner? You look at yourself in the mirror, you feel good. You walk into a room and you demand respect. How would you feel? You feel pretty bloody good. Go to the gym, start looking after yourself, start getting strong, so you can then, from a physical side of it, you're feeling great about yourself. That's just going to feed the emotional side, and it's just going to lift you up. And the people around you are going to see that. They're going to see the change, but they're going to see the change for good. Because when you're in a different emotional space, you're wanting to do more things and help more people. And that's where the movement starts.
Yeah, for sure. So let's get a little spicy here. So that whole, like, it's true for women
Let's go
too.
there.
That whole, like, the desire, because you're right. I think being in that age group, the over 40, over 50, whatever, even like in the 60s, if you lose this very essential human experience of sexuality, like that, there's an energy there that moves things, that creates, like, that's the ultimate creative power, right? And I'm not
100%.
saying that that needs to happen because you're always wanting to recreate, like, it's not just for procreating children, but there is a creative power in general to that energy, that it's not necessarily another human being, but it's your business, it's your health, it's relationships, it's all those things. And having that conversation for men and women, how to restore that, how to create that polarity, I think it's important. And 100%. So for women.
Yeah. Well, and you're right. I mean, the messages that I'm putting out, just, follow me on Facebook, Aaron Braithwaite, pretty easy to find. Well, I don't know, the last 5 years have been an interesting one. I mean, just really quickly, if you have a look at what happened in the last 5 years, and I'm in Australia, and we had one of the harshest lockdowns in the world, and I was originally in Melbourne at the time. Melbourne was in, we even lost count the amount of times that we got locked down in our homes. And it got to the point where we had a curfew. Like we weren't allowed to leave our homes for I'm pretty sure it was about a 6 to 8 week period. We weren't allowed to leave our homes at all. The only time we could leave our homes was for an hour of exercise, and we had a curfew. We could not be outside of our home at 9 o'clock. Now, along the way, obviously, there's a lot of people that like, hey, what the fuck are you doing here? Like, the whole protests and the whole lockdown protests, they were happening, but the heavy-handed, effect of police. I actually remember and look, I was one of very few men that actually stood up and spoke up and going, this is wrong. The majority of people that went to these protests were females. And women are protectors in their own right for their kids, their little cubs. So they were protecting the family. And when you're talking about, the feminine and the masculine, you saw the masculine come through in females and women. And we've seen that over the generations, that because you had all these brave men that went off to war, who was the ones that were left behind to look after the household? The mum, the woman. And they had to step into the masculine. Like I said, there's a lot of women that follow me on social media. They just want to be in the feminine. They want to find a man to help them get in the feminine. They don't want to be the masculine. They don't want to be the ones to fix it all. They don't want to be the ones to always constantly do it. They want the man to step up. Now, I'm not saying men step up and just be, the handyman. That's not it. Men need to step up, and they need to comfort their partners and their wives and go, it's okay, I've got this. Regardless of how chaotic it looks, the man needs to step up and be the leader and go, I've got this. Don't need to worry about it. And take care of what needs to be taken care of. Not to sit there and bitch and complain about the current situation. So it's a really interesting one. So yeah, well, obviously from the protest side of it, that was a real opener for me. That there's a lack of men that are willing to step up. And one of the experiences I had that one of the protests I went to, the police actually opened fire on us with rubber bullets and tear gas. Oh, it got to that extreme. All over that, you can't lock us down anymore. And now we're starting to see the truth come through. At what point are men going to stand up and start to stand in their truth? In other words, to start letting the world know, like, the difference between truth and the difference between being played. And you just need to stand in their power, stand in your power and own it. You know what's right, you know what's wrong. And when are you actually going to stand up and start stepping into your truth and let the world know that you are stepping in your truth, and you're also looking at it from a factor of where the line is, and you're not going to cross over that line. So,
yes, the whole COVID thing was just very interesting. And I had friends in Australia. I have friends in Australia who would share just the extreme of it. And they went to a protest, and one of my friends who's in Australia, her husband was like assaulted by whoever, the guards or the police or whatever they were doing. It was really scary. And yeah, and when from my perspective, when the lockdowns happened, I went into gear. I said, I am protecting my family. Exactly what you said. I said, I am not letting this fear, this bullshit, the health, all of this, that is not coming into my home or my children. And I went into gear. I had weekly family meetings. I made sure that they knew the truth. I, demonstrated it. So for sure, the women, the mama bears kind of stepped up during COVID. The other point I wanted to say about what you were saying is that, yes, challenging the men to step up, even though the women in their life, whoever they may be, whether it's their wives, girlfriends, sisters, whatever, mothers, whatever, they will naturally want to be protectors of their home and of their families. So women do have a responsibility to make space, right, for the men to also step up and not to shut them down. And that's a whole different conversation. But just recognizing that women have a responsibility, and I had that conversation on a solo podcast that I did last year. It takes both. The men don't be frightened off when the woman tries to boss you around. Like, I don't know. What would you say to a man who says, you don't know my wife, you don't know my girlfriend, man? If I try to do things, she just comes in and she just goes, wow. What would you say?
Women are wanting to hold you to the highest level of accountability. Open up the conversation, because obviously there's a disconnect. If you think your wife is having a go at you and nagging, it's like, nagging for you to step up. And that's where you need to have that uncomfortable conversation. That's where you need to, and this is, I'm talking about men here, that's where men need to like really sit back and go, okay, what's the outcome I want here? What is it that I'm trying to step up and be? And you need to communicate that. Because if you're not going to communicate that, all of a sudden you've just come in like you're literally a tornado that's coming into the home. And yeah, of course, yeah, mama bear, the wife's going to go, what the fuck is this? What are you doing? So yeah, you need to go, hey, I'm on this journey. And I need to do this journey for me, but ultimately it's for us. It's for the family. It's for you. I need to start showing up as a man that you married. I need to show up as a man that the world needs right now. And it's going to look a little chaotic, but I need to be disciplined in doing the things every single day. And I'm talking about moving your body every single day, making sure you're changing your eating habits. The other habits and behaviors you need to change. It's like the conversations you have, not only with yourself, but people around you. They need to be empowering conversations with yourself. And how do you do that? Well, it's either coming into your morning rituals, start doing meditation, start doing breath work, start getting internal. You're going to have to face it at some point. And if you're not facing it and you're using a distraction of all the emotions that are supposed to be coming up, there's the porn and there's the alcohol and there's the drugs that we talked about before. But if you're constantly repressing and suppressing emotion, you're going to become a pressure cooker. And it can be just that one little thing that's just going to tip you over the edge. When we see it in domestic violence, we just see it, and just a lot of expressive anger in men. It's like, mate, it's because you're repressing and suppressing emotion. So for me, I found the gym. Gym for me was my way of getting rid of anger, because the only way for you to get strong is that you need to start lifting heavy shit. And the only way to lift heavy shit is you got to face your fear and it potentially dropping on you. You've got to face it. So I used that. I channeled all of my anger into that, but also I needed to find that balance. And that balance for me was meditation. I'm not into, pumping the chest kind of move. That's not me. There are movements and there's men's groups out there that do that, but I see that as just a really short-term fix. You're letting out anger, but then it's like, what do you do after a 3-day, pumping your chest kind of thing? So this is where, for me, I use the gym for that. My own little world is my own battle within my own head on a weight that I've never lifted before. So then I'm challenging myself that way. And again, I'm just, I'm empowering myself of, you can do this. It's going to be difficult, but you can get through it. And then I find that calmness in meditation. And it's a really nice balance of how I need to show up for the world.
That's excellent. And movement of the body, 100%. And sometimes I think that men have it figured out because they are so physical and they do the sports and they do the physical activity. Whereas for women, there's this movement called feminine embodiment, where it's more than just exercise. It's more of a free flowing where, women experience their emotions differently. And it's doing the weightlifting and all that is not for some women, but not for every woman. And so that the movement of the body is really important. Aaron, let me ask you this. You mentioned earlier in the conversation that you listened to Tony Robbins. My question to you is that who was the person, or maybe the people that have influenced you most in your life, that have kind of caused you to make the shift that you did to where you are today?
Yeah, my message kind of changed around about 7 years ago. I was listening to Garrett J. White. Funny enough, very similar name of business, and it's Wake Up Warrior. Some men will recognize who this guy is. He's extremely passionate. He comes across as this really angry man when you listen to him. But again, I see it as passion, and I see it as that some men resonate with that because they need that fucking wake up call. And sometimes it is a bit of a shouting match. Whereas I know a lot of men, seek help from a lot of females, whether it be in counseling, whether it be in any kind of group or spirituality group. It's like, yeah, that's good to a degree, but we don't want you to step too much into your feminine. I need you to step into your masculine. And what's that? What did we do 100 years ago when we had a disagreement? We went out to the car park and we smacked the shit out of each other. Our caveman, mentality, it's like we're hunters or gatherers, and we smacked each other up. We had a disagreement. We didn't have a disagreement with words online. We literally faced each other and, right, let's go at it. That's what we did. So I kind of started off, listening to a lot of his messages and going, okay, fuck, it actually really resonates. And it's like, well, how do I empower myself to show the world where I'm at. And this was, again, having to face my darkness, face all those things that were causing me pain. And the pain was in the grief of losing dad. I lost my mum through COVID as well, which is, again, a really sucky situation when I was able to be by my dad's side when he passed away, but I couldn't be there with my mum. I'm in Australia, she's in New Zealand. So again, more pain came up, more grief came up, more anger came up. And you can't express those things. I also saw that a lot of men, especially here in Australia, a lot of men don't need an angry dad. They don't need an angry female. When a man feels like they've done something wrong, the last thing they need is someone shouting at them. So there needed to be a really nice little balance in, okay, well, how do I put this message together? But yeah, 7 years ago was literally that tipping point to going, oh shit, I see where the world's going right now. I see that men are not stepping up. I see that there's a lot of weakness in the world, and we're heading into, and we're seeing the tough times now. Here in Australia, like, things are getting really diabolical. I mean, in Canada, we're seeing it. Look at the UK, look at where the US are at the moment, and the US is and they've had to fight for their freedom. Australians haven't. We've never had to fight for freedoms at all. We've always been gifted by the government. So, yeah, men are like, she's cool. I don't need to speak up. And it's like, well, now's your fucking time. Now is the time for you to start going, hey, that's wrong. You can't do this anymore. And start putting your foot down, drawing a line in the sand, and really starting to protect your family. Because if you don't start doing that now, we're in for a really, really hard time. And if you're not, in touch with who you truly are, you're going to be lost along the way. And we're seeing that in our suicide stats, which is really, really sad. And it's Men's Mental Health Month here in Australia. And just really quickly on the stats, like 75% of all suicides are men here in Australia.
Wow. That's incredible.
So it's really sad. And it's really important that we need that movement. And we just need men to, hey, there's safe spaces. There's a lot of men that get you. They understand you. They've been through the pain. And I've seen they've stepped through the other side. It's interesting times.
I think that's so, maybe that's why I feel passionate about that message, like your message. Also, on my part, to women, I have a daughter, I have a son, and seeing the difference between them has just been so fun and funny. Like you said, my daughter, she's 20, so when she wants to connect, she'll come and we'll have conversations, we'll go have coffee, we'll drive, we'll talk. My son, he'll come and body slam me. He will literally come and he'll like, Mom, wait, he'll pick me up and throw me on it. And I'm like, okay, he needs this. I don't, but he needs. That's his way of connecting. And it's just so funny to, we'll have maybe a 5-minute conversation. And then he literally said this to me the other night. We were having starting a deep conversation. He goes, Mom, do you want me to show you how to do what is it called in wrestling? An arm rod, an arm hold, where you hold the arm in wrestling. He's like, let me show you how to do that.
Control your testosterone, mate. It's like...
You want to show an arm hold? That's what he's like, let me show you how to do an arm hold. Like, please don't break my arm. Anyway, it was just a funny how men and women are so different. And it could be that, you're planting the seeds. The men, they don't realize that they need that message. But when it goes down, like when they're going to bring their heads up and say, who's going to help me here? And then suddenly there you are, there's your messages. And now it's going to be soaked up like a sponge, where something they needed. So it takes, the heat to turn up for them to really understand that they need that message for all of us differently. Share with me, Aaron, and I know we're coming to the end of our time. I have just a couple more questions for you.
That's right.
And then we can talk about how people can connect with you. What is the kind of a story you can share about a breakthrough that you saw in one of your clients, like the one that is the most inspirational or transformative story that you can share from a client?
Yeah, I've got many. And there's a lot of men that come to me purely from a physical. They see themselves in the mirror and they don't like what they see in the mirror. They are oblivious to all the other things, the relationship building. They're oblivious to that. So again, the one-dimensional, they're coming to me from a physical perspective, and that's all cool. And look, for me, like I said, whatever your habits were, we need to break the habits. Whatever have got you to the point where you're fat and you're out of shape and you're lazy and you can't keep up with your kids, It's because of the habits that you've been doing over a period of time. And how do we break those habits? Every day we've got to get you uncomfortable. It's as simple as that. You need to embrace the uncomfortable in any journey that we do. So for me, it's like, all right, start moving every day, finding out, okay, well, what got you to the point that we're at the moment, and what do we need to change moving forward? And you know what was a really interesting young guy as well. He was in his late 20s. He had young family, and he came to me and was really upfront that there was a disconnect between him and his wife. The desiring of each other was no longer there, and he saw that. And the excuse was, "Got young kids, and I work hard." It's like, mate, but you're out of shape. You're not showing up as the father that your boys need, and you're not showing up as the husband and the man that your wife needs. So there's again a massive disconnect. And it's like, all right, let's stop blaming, and let's start taking accountability for your actions in the story here. And we got through to about 6 to 8 weeks of training, me kicking his ass in the gym. And when I say going to the gym, a lot of men will go, yeah, but I don't want to go to the gym, 5 days a week. Well, you fucking have to. It's like, that's just the way around it. It's like, you're not physical change in 3 days. You're not going to achieve a physical change if you just, hold the line and you're in a structure for 5 days and then you blow it out of the water and they're going binging on the weekends. So you're not going to achieve. So this is where, again, I instill the discipline and I instill the accountability. And one very, very strong message that I have when anyone that starts me is stop fucking lying. Stop lying to yourself. Stop lying to your family. Stop lying to people around you. Stop lying to yourself. I just want honesty. Give me honesty. And if you lie, I will find that and I will see that. I will see that in your behavior. I'll see it in what you don't do and what you tell me you've done. And then at the end of the week, it's like, all right, we're doing a check-in. And the check-in that we do measurements, we jump on the scales and we take photos. So from a physical perspective, if you're lying to me on the shit that you said you've done, but your check-ins come back completely different, it's like, mate, stop fucking lying. Stop lying to yourself. Stop, convincing yourself that everything is okay, because it's not. You look at yourself in the mirror. You're the problem. End of story. Now, the breakthrough came in around about 6 to 8 weeks. All of a sudden, like you said, head popped up and it's like, oh shit, I get it now. It's just a light bulb moment. And it's different for everyone. All of a sudden, everything just clicks. And it's whether or not they see a physical change, whether or not all of a sudden it's just that they have got in such a habit, such a ritual, that if they break that habit, it's like they're no longer them. When they get that light bulb moment, it's game on from there. It's like, great, now we're in the move, and now it's like, okay, now we're going to the next level. And the next level, obviously, from the physical side of it, is that's when we start looking at putting more practices in place. All right, what's your spirituality connection? It's like we meditate, we breath work, we make sure we get in with yourself. I want you to start listening to that inner voice and that guidance. And the inner voice and guidance is always from a place of love, and that gives them the strength, and it gives them it gives them the strength to be able to, and the confidence to be able to express themselves in a truer version of who they are. And they can no longer hide behind a lie.
The light bulb moment, it sounds to me that the transformation happens when they are in a place where there's that tough love discipline, there's that compassion that I heard in your message, but also knowing that you're not going to give up on them if they don't give up on themselves. If they keep showing up and at one point it clicks and says, okay,
Yep.
this is for real. He's not giving up on me. I'm not going to give up on myself. I can trust him. There's no lies. There's no pretense here. Let's, like, everything is like those shed. Like, I love, now I get the warrior shed method. You shed all those things that are falsely keeping you safe, or you feel like are keeping you protected, or whatever it is, the false sense of safety. And you shed all those things. And at a few weeks in, all of a sudden now it starts to become real.
Yep. Yep. And it always goes back to one thing: stop lying. Once you get rid of that, and once you start to realize that you've been lying all this time, and now you only start coming from a place of truth, everything becomes more authentic.
Yeah.
You're having deeper conversations with your family, and there's deeper connections. And you're also, again, that line in the sand, that you're starting to realize who are these people that have been holding you back. And that's a hard one for a lot of people. It's to let go of people that hold them back. And it can be family, it can be your brothers and your sisters, it can be your parents. Doesn't mean you love them any less.
Yeah, that's true. That's what I think. That was the hard, that's personally speaking, that was one of the hardest parts of my personal growth journey was relationships. Because for women in particular, relationships are very important to them.
Mm.
And not to say they're not for men, but women need connection. And so that was a multi-year shedding.
100%. Yeah, this is definitely not an overnight thing. 100%. You'll start to realize, but yeah, the journey never ends. I mean, like I said, when my dad passed away 10 years ago, the journey's still is still ongoing. Stuff comes up. The more you expand, the more you release, and the more that is exposed. And yeah, it's an interesting one. Look, no different to you. Of when my mum passed away, that was pretty much the last time I spoke to my brother and my sister. I don't love them any less than my brother and my sister. I love them for that, but we see the world very differently. And you have to be okay. You have to be okay with that, and you just need to understand. You just need to realize who those people are.
Really, it's a deep personal journey to say goodbye to relationships. And yeah, we can probably have a whole other conversation about that. But
We could.
yeah, but knowing that is part of the growth journey. And there are people who choose to stay in the relationships either out of a sense of duty, a sense of compassion. They don't want to hurt the other people. A sense of fear, they don't, saying
Mm,
goodbye to
mm,
some relationships means that maybe there's a loneliness or there's, if it's with a spouse, then there's even more like consequences of that has to be dealt with. But approaching it from compassion, I think is really key, is really key. So thank you for doing that. That's such an important place to provide for people. Aaron, let me ask you kind of few more last questions. I have a lot I can ask you. Um,
mm. I've got plenty of time. Yeah,
okay,
we go for as long as we go for. Yeah.
sounds good. Um, what what has been the biggest challenge that you've had to overcome, and how did you do that?
Look, I can look at it from a personal perspective, or I can look at it from a business perspective.
Share with me the business perspective because we haven't talked about that much, if that's okay.
Yeah, it's yeah, the business perspective is like just not quitting and not giving up, because there are going to be hard times. There are going to be times where, if you're running an online business and you're wanting people to see your message, but it's not hitting the people that your niche is, you just can't quit. You just got to keep moving forward, because if you're jumping from one thing to the next, all you're doing is following a trend. Trends don't last. So you need to really get in tune with, okay, well, what's my message here? What am I trying to do? What am I trying to bring to the world? And for me, is I just want men to rise up. And for me, I want men to realize that there is a space, there is a safe space, but there's also a safe space that is going to stop you or help you along the way in your journey of, no longer lying, but it's also going to hold you to the highest and the ultimate level of accountability. And a lot of men don't like that right now, because, like I said, we're in that pivoting point before the weak men, becoming the strong. So we're in that weak men created hard times created strong men. We're in that hard times creating strong men, phase. And that's about a 4-year phase. And the cycle itself is about an 80-year cycle. And we're at the end of it. So, and hence why we're seeing so many things in governments and so many things around the world becoming really ultra hard for the middle class. Whether it be taxes going up, whether it be that, you can't go to work unless you get the jabby jab. And again, it's like the strength that you need to find within yourself to just say one really simple word, and that word is no. Like I said before, my message is landing with females, and it's like, great, I'm glad it's landing with females. Well, I need your support. I need your support to really help guide men in a direction where they need to be. And stop complaining that there's no men out there like you. And it's like, well, there are. They're just afraid to come out. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to waving lines. And it's a little bit like an alcoholic. An alcoholic needs to realize that they're an alcoholic before they seek help. So men need to realize that if I keep going down this path, I'm either going to die or I'm going to be lonely. It's like at some point they need to realize that they need help. And my message will land with them. And it's a divine timing. You can look at it from a spirituality side of it. And it's like, there's always a reason. There's a reason for everything. There's no coincidences. And I just need to not quit. Because if you quit, you're generally, that far away from the gold, that far away from the diamond. So no, I've just got to be persistent, keep working, keep going. So that's from a business point of view. And it's like, just do not quit.
Love that. Resilience. It truly is one the quality that's gonna get you through. I've had my business for 20 years. Last August was 20 years, and so many points that I wanted to quit, but there was a
Mm,
quality of for men and women who are in business that is, yeah, it just separates the things that need to be shed to the things that need to stay to get you to the next phase. Um, I wanted to add this actually when we were talking about, I love that a lot of your audience is women because I believe that women they kind of they fill the space that men create, or they create the space and then they're able to the men can step into, like, there's kind of both dynamics, and it's important that women know what that space looks like and what needs to be brought to that space for the men to be able to step into that, because in a lot of ways the energy that's brought in, I think the men will follow that and respond to that when the woman shows up in a certain way. But here's what I want to I think it's good that women increase their intelligence in that dynamic, because women will test the men. And you said that, like, when if the woman says that she starts nagging, or if she starts getting angry, or stops, like, steps up to fix things, shows up in kind of boss mode, that is she is saying, what are you going to do about it?
Yep.
And um and the men need to, it's almost like, when you have a toddler, not to compare women to toddlers, but I think it's human nature where your kid will test you and test your authority to know if they can trust you. They're not testing you because they're trying to be brats. They're like, are you someone I can trust? Are you someone who's going to hold to your mission, who's going to hold steady? Because I need you to be steady, even when I'm the one who's causing the storm. Can you be steady? And so
Yep.
I think that that's innate in women. Some of them are more conscious of it than others. But I think it's just something, I don't know, that I think that needs to be said. Women will test the men, and
100%. It's absolutely worth pointing out. And you're right. It's all of that. It's that you know when you have a look at this generation in this lifetime, yeah, there have been women that have had no choice but to step in and be the protector, provider, step in their masculine role and just do all the things because men haven't stepped up. So 100%, and that is the opportunity for men. Going back to, mate, you told your partner, even when you first started dating, all these things that you were, and you haven't shown up to be that man. It's like, now's your opportunity, to claim that again and to stop fucking lying. Yeah, and it all goes back to that whole lying to say just so they can get the sex. Let's be real. And then when you're looking at it from that perspective, it's like, and then it turns into a relationship, and then it turns into marriage, and it's like, well, you've lost who you were. Why have you lost who you were? Because you're comfortable now? It's like, mate, now's your opportunity to, redefine who you are again. Perfect opportunity.
amen, amen. All right, let me ask you this, and then we can wrap it up, and then tell people how to stay in contact with you. So tell me, so you talk about what was the biggest challenge, which was just don't give up. Don't give up. I think business, even personal, just show up. So what continues to be a challenge for you that tests your resolve over and over again?
Oh, oh, that's a really interesting question. I could look at this from, my own personal journey, because, hey, at the end of the day, it's like, yes, I'm the coach. Yes, I've got the warriorship movement, but I'm still on this journey myself. So I could look at it from that point of view. But I think the biggest thing for me that is, look, I'm not saying it's scary. I'm just saying it's a really interesting place that we're in right now, and that's AI. It's a really very different to kind of like where I'm at. AI is going to be a real challenge for the online space. And I think also it's like, for me, moving forward, the grand dream is to do retreats, 3 4 day retreats. And then it's having a gym space where, and it's a little bit like it's like a clubhouse, if you want to call it that. So, but that can only be local. So then from a local perspective, how can I then get my message out on a global scale? So AI for me is going to be a really interesting one. But what I will say is that you can go onto AI, you can type in, give me a 12-week training program for, I'm a male, I'm 44 years old. Look, I'm 55, by the way. So if I can do it at 55, sure, that can do this. But from an AI perspective, you can type in, I want a 12-week training and nutrition plan. I'm a 44-year-old male. I weigh this amount of weight. and I don't go to the gym, or I want to go to the gym 3 days a week, and AI will spit out your entire plan for 12 weeks. The one thing it will not do for you is hold you accountable. And that's where we come in. Now I need to step more into a coaching role, more so than the trainer role, because I can give you a nutrition plan. I can give you a training schedule for 12 weeks. That's no problem. But unless I show up as a coach to hold you ultimately accountable, and meet you where you're at, that's a skill AI doesn't have. So that's more learning for me. That's more personal development. I'm really interested with human behavior. It's evolved and how it's changed, and it's going to continue to change. It's really interesting to see where society goes with this. And again, with the pressure from governments, the pressure from society, with men go, we're only going to go one or two ways. We're either going to stay silent, we're going to hide even further, or we're going to step up. And I'm got to be the one to go, hey guys, come with me. We need to step up. So yeah, really, really interesting space.
Yes, and being in the same generation as you, the whole like technology is moving so fast, and the generational. I actually wrote about this. The generational gap is like getting wider and wider.
Mm.
I have my Gen Z kids, right? And so, how old's your son, by the way?
24.
Oh, he's
So
24.
he's 24. So he's in there. Yep.
Yeah, so I feel like I feel that. I feel the disconnect from even my kids because technology is moving so fast. And so yeah, it definitely is a space that you have to learn to embrace. It is a challenge. It's a challenge. It's fun though.
Mm.
We can have an offline conversation about AI, but it's exciting. It's actually exciting.
Very.
Okay, so what advice would you give your younger self?
Oh, you know what? It's actually a question that I do a podcast with a brother from another mother in the US, and it's a question that we throw out there every now and then. The one word that comes to me, even if I ask myself when I was 8, because when you have a look at my journey, you have a look at the trauma. We've all got childhood trauma. I both my parents were alcoholics. They did the best that they could. When it was from a love perspective, they were not there fully in their love. They were doing the best that they could, but again, suppressing a lot of emotion through alcohol, through gambling as well. And it was really tough to see. It was really tough to see. And I experienced that literally from easily 6 years old right through to, my late teens. So it was a big journey. The one thing I would say to my younger self is two things actually. The first one is do not quit. Do not quit, because life gets hard. You go through your mid-teens and you just feel alone. You just don't feel like you're in place. You're not one the popular kids, and it's really fucking hard as a young teenager when you're not one of the popular kids, and you just want to fit in. All you want to do is you just want to fit in. It's not that you want to be seen. You don't want to be popular. It's just you just want to be seen. And that was really hard, and that's where a lot of suicidal thoughts come in for a lot of kids. Me being one of them. So trust is one. Just trust the process. Everything. The other one is that everything will work out okay, and just do not quit. Trust and just do not quit, because there are some good things coming. And yeah, I've been through some challenging times. I've been through and asked myself the question of like, what if it all ended now? And it's a deep thing to say, and it can be absolutely for another conversation. But when you get to those points in your life, and you get to the point where I am at the moment, I'm glad I went through all of those challenges, because I wouldn't be the man that I am today. I wouldn't be showing up as the strong man that I know not only I need to be, not only the world needs to be, but my son needs to see. And with your kids will mirror everything you do, everything, good and bad. So what kind of daughter, what kind of son do you want them to grow up to be? Then well, then fucking show up and be the father that they need.
That's exactly right. That is excellent advice. You're absolutely right. And thank you so much for sharing your insight, your wisdom, your experience, for being transparent about all of it. I know that my listeners have gotten a lot out of it. I enjoyed it. Please follow Aaron on Instagram, Facebook. He has a lot of great content out there. Thank you for tuning in, for making it this far. And again, my name is Kia Arian, reminding you once again that your skills, your talents have been given to you for a reason. There are people who stand to benefit from what you have to offer, and there are those who you are not called to help. Focus on the former group, they're waiting for you.
If you enjoyed this broadcast, subscribe to the show, connect with Kia on LinkedIn, and let her know what inspired you. This broadcast was brought to you by Zine, a marketing and brand development agency that helps attorneys, entrepreneurs, and professional service providers create raving clients who love them, stay with them, and tell others about them. Visit zinemarketing.com/newsletter to sign up and receive the Breathe Life newsletter, a print publication of Zine.